Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Thursday, November the 11th. It's 10:05 a.m., and we're here in docket number 2021-5G. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioners J. Williams, C. Williams, Powers, Belzer, and joining us virtually, we have Commissioner Thomas. Before we get started, let's have a brief moment of silence. General Counsel Wessinger Hill, would you please read the docket, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The proceeding before you today is in docket number 2021-5G. This docket is the annual review of the purchase gas adjustment and gas purchasing policies of electric utility Dominion South Carolina Incorporated. This hearing was scheduled and noticed by the clerk's office for November 4th, 2021, beginning at 10 a.m. Mr. Chairman, this proceeding was scheduled to be conducted virtually. Upon inquiry and agreement of all participating parties of record, counsel and witnesses on behalf of the Office of Regulatory Staff shall participate in person and are present in the hearing room and socially distanced. Legal counsel and witnesses for Dominion Energy South Carolina Incorporated shall participate virtually as scheduled. It is my understanding that the Commission's technology is functioning and that all parties participating in this matter are present with their respective witnesses, either virtually or in person. Mr. Chairman, the docket is in order and available upon your call for appearances and opening with preliminary matters.
Thank you, General Counsel Wessinger Hill. Let's take appearances from the parties. We'll start with Dominion Energy South Carolina.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Matt Gitzendanner. I'm Corporate Counsel for Dominion Energy South Carolina. With me today is Mr. Chad Burgess, who is also Corporate Counsel for Dominion Energy South Carolina. It's our pleasure to appear before you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Gitzendanner. Long time no see. Good to see you again. Office of Regulatory Staff.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Belzer, members of the Commission. My name is Nicole Hare on behalf of the Office of Regulatory Staff. It's a pleasure to be present before you this morning. With me in the hearing room are Andrew Bateman and Alex Knowles, also from the Office of Regulatory Staff.
All right. Welcome to the Regulatory Bar in South Carolina. Ms. Hare, I understand it's your first time appearing before us?
That is correct. Thank you.
Well, glad to have you here. Do we have any preliminary matters?
One preliminary matter, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Attorney here, if you would.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry,
So,
I thought that was on.
Right. It's on when the red light.
Thank you. Dominion Energy South Carolina, Inc. and the Office of Regulatory Staff entered into a stipulation filed with the Commission on October 25th, agreeing to all issues in this case. Per the stipulation, ORS and the company have agreed to stipulate to the pre-filed direct testimony of their witnesses into the record without cross-examination. At this time, ORS would ask that the stipulation, along with stipulation exhibit number 1, be entered into the record as a composite hearing exhibit number 1.
Thank you, Attorney here. And at your request and by the agreement of the parties, the stipulation and stipulation exhibit 1 will be marked as a composite exhibit and entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 1. All right, is there anything else? If not, Dominion Energy, South Carolina, are you ready to call your first witness?
We are. Dominion Energy calls Greg McGlohorn to the stand.
All right, Mr. McGlohorn, if you would take the stand and pause to be sworn in by the court reporter.
If you would raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. McGlohorn, would you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Greg McGlohorn.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Dominion Energy South Carolina, and my position is General Manager, Gas Operations.
And Mr. McGlohorn, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 11 pages that was previously filed with the Commission in this document?
Yes.
And do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
And so if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'll move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Greg McGlohorn be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Greg McGlohorn will be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. McGlohorn, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Yes, I will. Good morning, Chairman Williams and members of the commission. The purpose of today's proceeding is to determine the prudence of Dominion Energy South Carolina's gas purchasing policies and practices during the period of August 1st, 2020 through July 31st, 2021, and to determine if the company properly applied its tariff in recovering its gas costs. The company has developed a safe and reliable natural gas system through which we serve our customers. Over time, Dominion Energy South Carolina has seen its natural gas distribution system grow to approximately 10,500 miles of pipeline, which includes approximately 10,066 miles of distribution mains and 433 miles of transmission mains, plus approximately 436,800 service lines. Through these facilities, the company delivers safe, reliable natural gas service to approximately 412,550 factories, businesses, and homes in South Carolina. Dominion Energy South Carolina also owns and operates 2 liquefied natural gas facilities, which allow the storage of natural gas in a liquid form to be used primarily to help meet peak loads on the system and as a backup supply of gas in emergency situations. Firm demand on the company's system has continued to grow, and Dominion Energy South Carolina has consistently improved and expanded its system by adding pipeline to serve its new and existing customers and create operating flexibility on its system. Moreover, the company completed a number of projects to improve system safety, integrity, and reliability. As this commission is aware, Dominion Energy South Carolina's highest priority is to safeguard and protect those individuals who come into contact with the Dominion Energy South Carolina system, including employees, customers, and the public at large. During the review period, the company prudently managed its business operations, which included the purchase and recovery of its gas supplies and administration of the PGA. Therefore, on behalf of Dominion Energy South Carolina, I respectfully request the commission find that the company has recovered its gas costs for the review period consistent with its tariff and commission orders, and that it has purchased its gas supplies and administered the PGA in a prudent and reasonable manner. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. McGlohorn. Mr. Chairman, Mr. McGlohorn is available for questioning by the commissioners.
Commissioner questions for this witness.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chair Belzer.
thank you. Good morning, Mr. McGlohorn. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning.
In your pre-file testimony, you referenced the company's sewer cross-bore inspection program. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I'm just not real familiar with that.
Yes, it is a pipeline integrity program that's part of our distribution integrity management plan. But the issue there is there could have been times in the past, we have a system that is quite old in some areas, and in some cases, in the early days of boring in service lines, it is possible that there was a conflict with a sewer line, possibly a sewer service going into a home. And if the contractor was not aware of that sewer line, then it is possible that the gas line could have been bored into that sewer line, possibly intersecting it. And that's important because if that were to cause a sewer backup and the customer were to call a plumber and they ran a mechanical device in that sewer line to clear out whatever was potentially obstructing the flow, then that could cause a gas leak, and then that gas leak could travel to different areas through the sewer system. So what we want to do now that we have identified that as a potential hazard throughout the entire gas industry, not just here in South Carolina, we want to proactively go out and look in those areas that we feel are most susceptible based on the risk modeling that we prepared, and then run cameras down those sewer lines, work with the local sewer companies to perform those inspections and find any of those sewer crossbores that may exist, and then remediate them before there are any leaks that would result.
Are those typically on the service line to the customer's home, or are those in the sewer mains?
It can be either, but it is most often found in the sewer line, in the sewer service line, somewhere between the clean out and the customer's home. So it's normally our gas service line. And again, these things are rare. I don't want to imply that they are found very often at all. In fact, we spend a lot of time and effort to find very few of them, but that is where they normally would be found when we do find them.
And are there procedures in place for when, okay, are these service, I'm talking about the gas line, are these installing of the service line to the home typically? I understand they can be both, but I think you indicated that there were 3 found during the review period. Were those when the gas line was being installed to the home, not like laying a new line along the street where you're intersecting a main? Is that correct?
Yes, that is typically where the sewer cross bores occur. And I would like to point out too that it is very much a legacy issue. Today, we have policies and procedures in place that should prevent the occurrence of a sewer cross bore. We do things such as running a bore camera down the line. We would locate the sewer facility, make sure we have a good location on it before we install our gas line, and various other measures to prevent these from occurring new. So the ones that we find are typically very old, and they are typically on the service line.
And is this program where y'all are trying to inspect a certain percentage each year, or how's the program going forward?
Yes, we are currently working in our highest risk areas, and we will continue to move through different parts of our system until such time that we are either no longer finding sewer cross bores, or if we just get to the point where the bang for the buck, so to speak, is not there, that we are just not finding any numbers that would justify the expense. So again, right now working through the highest risk areas, and then eventually per our distribution integrity management plan, hopefully we will eliminate those in the high risk areas, and then other risks will bubble up and take the higher priority for our DEMP efforts.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your responses to my questions. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for this witness? All right. Hearing none, Mr. McGlohorn, you may step down and you are excused.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Attorney Gissendanner, you may call your next witness.
Dominion Energy calls Rachel Elliott to the stand.
Good morning, Miss Rachel Robinson Elliott. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Chairman. Thank you. Good to see you too.
If you would please pause to be sworn in by the court reporter.
Ms. Elliott, if you would raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Elliott, please state your name for the record.
It's Rachel Robinson Elliott.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I am employed by Dominion Energy Services as the manager of regulation.
And have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 6 pages that was previously filed with the commission in this document?
Yes.
And do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
So if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'll move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mrs. Rachel Elliott be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Ms. Elliott will be entered into the record as if read or given orally from the stand.
And Mrs. Elliott, have you also prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision 2 exhibits labeled as exhibit numbers RRE1 and RRE2 that were previously filed with the commission as an attachment to your pre-filed direct testimony in this document?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to either of those exhibits?
No, I do not.
Mr. Chairman, I would also move into the record as the next hearing composite exhibit, the exhibits attached to Mrs. Elliott's direct testimony and labeled as exhibit numbers RRE1 and RRE2.
Exhibits RRE1 and 2 will be marked as a composite exhibit and entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Elliott, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I have.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Yes. Good morning, Chairman Williams and members of the commission. I am appearing today to support the company's gas cost recovery mechanism and to support the cost of gas data for the period under review in this proceeding, which is August 1, 2020 through July 31, 2021. In administering the company's cost of gas recovery mechanism, Dominion Energy South Carolina calculates the gas cost factor for each customer class each month using a rolling 12-month forecast of both demand and commodity cost. The company reviews the demand charge cost of gas allocation factors each year during the PGA proceeding and updates the factors to reflect current forecast parameters. These allocations are based on a weighting of 50% forecast sales and 50% forecast peak design day demand. The stipulation proposes to continue this demand cost allocation method and requests that the allocation factors as presented in my direct testimony be approved beginning with the first billing cycle of January 2022. Exhibit RRE-1 accurately reflects administration of the PGA recovery mechanism as approved by the commission, and Exhibit RRE-2 shows a summary of the monthly forecast of gas cost components and the resulting monthly over-under collection balances. The end of period balance of 0 shows that the forecasted gas cost factors would eliminate any projected over-under collection amount by the end of the forecast period ending August 2022. During the review period, Dominion Energy South Carolina properly administered the purchase gas adjustment and correctly adjusted the gas cost recovery factors for each customer class in accordance with the terms of Order Number 2006-679 as modified by Order Number 2009-910. In addition, Dominion Energy South Carolina recovered its gas costs consistent with applicable tariffs and commission orders. Accordingly, and consistent with the stipulation, Dominion Energy South Carolina respectfully requests the commission find that the company has recovered its gas cost for the review period consistent with its tariffs and commission orders, and that it has purchased its gas supplies and administered the PGA in a prudent and reasonable manner. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. Mr. Chairman, Ms. Elliott is available to the commission for questioning.
Commissioner questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Powers?
Ms. Elliott, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Powers. How are you?
I'm good, and my question is more one of curiosity as to any question about your calculations. And knowing that you have the limit of how much you can adjust a customer's cost. With the volatility now that we're seeing with gas prices, I know I just filled up this morning, about had a heart attack. Where do you see gas prices going in the near future, and how does Dominion deal with these unexpected costs?
So, Commissioner, it's probably tough for me to say where gas prices are headed. And Witness Jackson may have a little bit more insight into it since she's on the supply side. But what I can tell you is that we've seen some spikes here. If you look at the PGA review period, so it started last August. And so at that time, the market price was at $1.85 a decatherm. And by the time we got to the end of the PGA period, that price had gone up to $3.62 per decatherm. And we've seen that continue to happen each month since then. In fact, our close price for October was $5.84. So we've certainly seen some significant spikes in a very short period of time. And it's hard to say if that's going to continue. My guess would be if we do have a cold winter or colder than normal winter, we may continue to see it at least stay at the levels that it is at now, or it may continue to go up. But we do use a 12-month rolling forecast, which kind of helps mitigate the impact to our customers. So we set those prices based on an average price and not necessarily a price for any particular day or month in the month. And so that kind of helps mitigate some of that volatility to our customers. But we have seen upward pressure on our commodity factor because of the prices.
Well, I'm like you. I keep waiting for them to go back down, but they haven't. And hopefully the forecast is a warm winter, and I'll keep my fingers crossed, and I hope y'all will too, that it turns out that way.
We're keeping our fingers crossed that they do go back down. I will tell you that when you kind of get through the winter months, you do see it start to come back down when you look at the forecast. So I'm hopeful that it'll come back down, but if we don't have that warm winter, that may not be the case.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Ms. Elliott? All right, thank you, Ms. Elliott. You may step down and you are excused.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, Dominion Energy calls Rose Jackson to the stand.
All right, Ms. Jackson, if you would please take the stand. Pause to be sworn in by the court reporter.
If you would raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson, please state your name for the record.
Rose M. Jackson.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Dominion Energy Services Incorporated as the Director of Gas Supply Services.
And Ms. Jackson, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 13 pages that was previously filed with the commission in this docket?
Yes, sir.
And do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed testimony?
Yes, sir. We filed a corrected exhibit RMJ-1. And because of that, I have some corrections to my testimony associated with that.
Okay.
So if you
share that with us.
Yes, sir. If you will turn to page 4, line 9 of my direct testimony, please insert the word corrected before exhibit RMJ-1. On page 5, line 20, delete the phrase "as stated above," comma, at the beginning of the sentence and capitalize T in "the." Page 6, line 16, insert corrected before exhibit RMJ-1. And the final one is on page 10, line 2, insert corrected before exhibit RMJ-1.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Subject to those changes, if I ask you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would note at this time that the company will be following Mrs. Jackson's corrected testimony on the DMS system later this afternoon. At this time, I would move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Rose Jackson, as amended here today, be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Ms. Jackson's amended pre-filed direct testimony will be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Jackson, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision 2 exhibits labeled as corrected exhibit number RMJ1 and exhibit number RMJ2 that were previously filed with the commission as attachments to your pre-filed direct testimony in this document?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any changes or additions to those exhibits?
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would also move into the record as the next hearing composite exhibit, the exhibits attached to Ms. Jackson's direct testimony and labeled as corrected exhibit number RMJ1 and exhibit number RMJ2.
Corrected exhibit RMJ1 and exhibit RMJ2 will be marked as a composite exhibit and entered into the record as hearing exhibit 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Jackson, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, sir, I have.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Good morning, Chairman Williams and members of the commission. My testimony discusses the company's portfolio of gas supply. During the review period, the company's gas asset portfolio relied upon all 3 gas supply options available to it, namely wellhead gas supply, underground storage secured from Southern Natural Gas Company or Southern, and transcontinental gas pipeline or Transco, and liquefied natural gas, also known as LNG. Dominion Energy South Carolina combines these supply options with interstate transportation to meet its firm demand under varying weather conditions at reasonable cost. During the review period, Dominion Energy South Carolina contracted for sufficient supplies of natural gas, provided reliable service to its customers, and adequately and prudently maintained gas, storage, and transportation assets to meet the needs of the system. On October 25th, 2021, Dominion Energy South Carolina and the ORS entered into a stipulation as to certain issues in this matter. Under the stipulations, the parties accept the purchase gas adjustment over and under collections for the review period set forth in Ms. Elliott's exhibit RRE-1, agree to maintain the monthly adjustment procedure and notification procedure of the total cost of gas factors as adopted in prior commission orders, acknowledge that the demand charges included in the total cost of gas factors will continue to be calculated by distributing such cost among the rate schedules based upon a 50-50 allocation of peak design day demand and annual forecast sales. Agree that the allocation factors contained on page 4 of Ms. Elliott's pre-filed direct testimony are appropriate and should be used for cost of gas calculations beginning with the first billing cycle of January 2022, and agree that the company shall continue to charge and recover carrying costs, if applicable, on the cumulative total over or under collection balances as set forth in prior commission orders. Consistent with the stipulation, I respectfully request the commission find that Dominion Energy South Carolina's cost of gas purchases and asset management were reasonable and prudent for the review period. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jackson is available to the commission for questions.
Commissioner, questions for Mrs.
Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Thomas.
Commissioner Thomas, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. So I had a question about the segmentation between the geographic regions and what's going on with that. Sounds like things are changing and that's not as reliable to help meet the capacity needs as it once was.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Thomas, as Carolina Gas Transmission System has increased the number of customers and the volumes demanded on their system, it makes it more and more difficult for them to be able to model several days ahead. So what we have to do is request that segmentation whenever we plan to dispatch LNG. And we're just concerned over time that that segmentation may become less and less reliable. So that's why you don't see it included in our asset stack for the design day.
Okay. And you mentioned LNG. So you have the two plants, one at Bushy Park and one at Sally. And the one at Sally relies on trucked in LNG. So where does that LNG come from?
The LNG is actually liquefied at Bushy Park. Bushy Park is the only facility that we have that has a liquefier. So the gas is liquefied at Bushy Park and then trucked to Sally. And then we begin liquefying gas for LNG that's held at Bushy Park.
Okay. So I assume that the company's taking a look at that and that that's the most cost-effective way to operate the system. Sally not having its own liquefaction facility, it's more cost-effective to have it all liquefied at Bushy Park and then trucked in. As I assume you all have looked at that, and I think that's the best way to do it.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Thomas, we are evaluating how to best use our LNG facilities going forward as part of our long-range planning. So we may determine that adding liquefaction at Sally is an alternative. We may also look at other sites along the system where we have higher growth factors on our system. We have considered a smaller modular type LNG facility as well.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Ms. Jackson? Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. Good morning, Ms. Jackson. Good to see you again.
Good morning.
In Mr. Sullivan's direct exhibit DFS3, capitalized direct cost in July of 2021 are listed as about $382,000. That's about 47% of the total capitalized cost for the test period. I'm just curious why the capitalized costs were so high in the final month of the test period.
Which exhibit was that again? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I said it really fast. DFS 3.
DFS 3, where it's the LNG inventory activity. Am I looking at the wrong one?
That's correct. That's correct. For the 12 months.
Yeah.
And so the question is, the capitalized cost in July of 2021 are listed at $382,947. I believe.
Yes, ma'am. I see that now.
So the question was just, why were the capitalized costs so high in the final month of the test period?
I'm looking, and I apologize. I'm not exactly sure what is included in the direct cost in that capitalized amount. I'm more familiar with the boil off, the vaporization, than the liquefaction. That may have been a better question for Miss Elliott. I apologize.
Okay. Well, now I know.
Sorry.
We're all learning. And also related to liquefied gas, should the reserves that you have liquefied over the summer, do they mitigate at all the increasing natural gas prices?
Yes, ma'am. We consider that our part of our physical hedging program, not only LNG, which is on system storage, but we also have storage that we contract for on the interstate pipelines that you'll see on my exhibit RMJ-1. So what it allows us to do is we can ratably inject gas into storage over the summer months so that we can utilize that storage over the winter months when we typically see gas prices higher than in the summer.
I'm glad you mentioned that it was kind of your own, I've forgotten the word that you said, but your own way of hedging.
Does the company ever reassess the need for hedging, particularly with what we're looking at in the next, what we've experienced and what we're looking at in the coming months?
Well, we previously have had a financial hedging program, but any financial hedging program comes with a cost. And so several years ago, the decision was made in conjunction with ORS and discussions at the time with the commission to suspend our hedging program. And we do utilize physical gas storage as we discussed, but we also have the PGA mechanism that allows us to spread the volatility of those gas costs over the 12-month period.
That sounds like a no, that you're comfortable the way that you're handling it now with the physical hedging as well as the PGA. And so you're
yes,
not
ma'am, we are comfortable at this point in time.
Okay. Can you explain any additional safeguards that are in place to prevent large swings in retail prices to customers?
We evaluate our assets on an annual basis, and we're looking at a forecast of demand out 20 years. And as I've stated in my testimony, we expect the Mountain Valley pipeline capacity to come online in mid-summer of 2022, which will enable us to further diversify our gas procurement into that Marcellus region, which at this time is trading at a discount to what we see in the Gulf Coast region. So what we focus on is diversifying our overall portfolio, not just by the type of assets such as storage, transportation, and on-system LNG, but also diversifying the supply basins that we purchase gas from.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers. No further questions.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions from commissioners for Ms. Jackson? Ms. Jackson, thank you for joining us this morning. You may step down and you are excused.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Gissendanner. That concludes the company's case.
Thank you, Mr. Gissendanner. Office of Regulatory Staff, are you ready to present your case?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we are. ORS would call Daniel Sullivan and Michael Seaman-Wen to the stand.
If you would raise your right hands, please. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Attorney, here is your microphone on.
I'm not sure. Can you all hear me?
Okay, you can.
Great.
I believe it is on.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, since Mr. Seaman-Wen and Mr. Sullivan are presenting as a panel, I'd ask that I be permitted to conduct examinations of them individually and then at the end make them both available for commissioner questions.
Yes, you may.
Great, thank you. Mr. Sullivan, good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your full name and occupation for the record.
My name is Daniel Sullivan. I'm employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as the Director of the Audit Department.
Are you the same Daniel Sullivan who pre-filed 7 pages of direct testimony and 3 exhibits marked as DFS 1 through DFS 3 in this docket on October 13th, 2021?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your testimony or your exhibits?
I do not.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, ORS would ask that the pre-filed direct testimony of Daniel Sullivan be entered into the record of this case as if given orally from the stand, and that Mr. Sullivan's exhibits DFS 1 through DFS 3 be marked as a composite hearing exhibit and entered into the record as the next hearing exhibit.
Mr. Sullivan's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. Mr. Sullivan's exhibits DFS 1 through 3 will be marked and entered into the record as a composite exhibit and hearing exhibit number 3, or 4, I'm sorry.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sullivan, did you prepare a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I did.
Please present your summary to the commission.
Sure. Good morning, Chairman Williams, members of the commission. The purpose of my testimony is to present the findings and recommendations resulting from the ORS Audit Department's examination of Dominion Energy South Carolina's purchase gas adjustment, referred to by its acronym PGA, and gas purchasing policies for the period August 2020 through July 2021. Audit Exhibit DFS1 presents, for each month of the review period, the components which comprise the cumulative PGA over-under collection. Dominion began the period with a net under collection of $11,214,096. Activity during the period for the various components in the PGA resulted in an under collection balance on July 31st, 2021 of $840,321. During our review of the PGA, the company provided ORS with detailed calculations of its interstate pipeline storage and liquefied natural gas, or LNG, storage facility inventories. ORS accumulated the various inventories by storage location in total and summarizes them in Exhibits DFS2 and DFS3 for Commission consideration. Based on our examination, it is the opinion of ORS that the company's PGA under collection on July 31st, 2021 of $840,315 shown on Company Witness Elliott's Exhibit number RRE1 is accurately stated.
Mr. Sullivan, does this conclude your summary?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Mr. Seaman Wen, good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name and occupation for the record.
My name is Michael Seaman Wen. I'm employed by the Office of Regulatory Staff as the Deputy Director of Energy Operations.
And are you the same Michael Seaman Wen who pre-filed 12 pages of direct testimony in this case on October 13th, 2021?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
Mr. Chairman, ORS asks that the pre-filed direct testimony of Michael Seaman Wen be entered into the record of this case as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Michael Seaman Wen will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Seaman Wen, did you prepare a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Please present a summary of your testimony to the Commission.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. It is a pleasure to appear before you today in person and not in Max Headroom mode. It's also a pleasure to see some of your faces in person for the very first time. The purpose of my testimony is to present ORS's findings and recommendations resulting from our review and examination of Dominion Energy South Carolina during the review period. First, ORS reviewed the company's large construction and maintenance projects in order to ensure those projects promote the safe and reliable delivery of natural gas. Second, ORS reviewed the company's gas purchasing policies and practices and found them to be reasonable. ORS found that the company is prepared to meet its winter's projected firm customers' requirements. Third, ORS found that Dominion administered and recovered its gas costs in a manner consistent with current Commission-approved tariffs and Commission orders. Fourth, ORS has reviewed the proposed calculation of the demand cost of gas allocation factors and agrees with these factors as calculated by the company to be implemented in January 2022. Subsequent to the filing of my direct testimony, a stipulation was entered into between the company and ORS. ORS believes that the stipulation is in the public interest and requests that the Commission approve the stipulation as presented.
Does this conclude your summary?
Yes, it does.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Seaman Wen are available for Commission questions.
Questions for this panel?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Belzer.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
It's good to see y'all in person.
Good to see you too.
Mr. Seaman Wen, in your pre-file testimony, you noted, I think it was 8 instances where there was some gas interruption during the review, during this review period. Anything unusual or troublesome about those interruptions?
No, ma'am. There was nothing of note of those interruptions. I would note that the number of interruptions is similar to what we've seen in the last few PGA cases. ORS does not have any concerns about the interruptions during the review period. Okay.
I do know that it seemed that if the majority, if not all of them, were because of temperatures that seemed to be below normal. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But there were none that were really real low. It's not like we were below freezing or down in the teens or single digits. Is there any reason? I mean, some of them were in the 40s, a few, 5 or 6 degrees from normal. Is that any cause for concern?
No, ma'am. I don't have any excessive concerns or any real concerns regarding the reasoning for that. As Ms. Jackson has stated, there's a lot of system out there, and is a very diverse system across the state. And so lower than average temperatures can be challenging in various areas in the service of its interruptible customers. I would note that the company did meet the needs of its firm's customers throughout the entire review period, and these interruptions were for interruptible customers.
That was my next question, so thank you for getting there. And then based on your review, I think you've already stated this, but it's the opinion of ORS that following its review that the company administered the purchase gas adjustment and correctly had made adjustments for gas cost recovery factors for each customer class during the review period. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And also that the company employed prudent gas purchasing policies and practices during the review period.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And that the recovery of the gas costs were consistent with the company's tariffs and commission orders. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Sullivan, you're off the hook.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Thomas.
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Just
Commissioner.
a couple of questions here. I think my first one is for Mr. Sullivan, and looking at your exhibit DFS 3, and you have some capitalized costs to the LNG storage. I guess 2 questions there. Can you explain what these direct costs are, and also what happened in July of 2021 that was the higher than normal costs?
Yes, sir. I can answer part of that accurately, and the other part I'm not going to be able to on July, but I can tell you what comprises direct cost capitalized. That's natural gas that's used in the LNG process, trucking invoices, trailer rentals, and also Southern Natural Gas Pipeline transportation to get gas to the Bushy Park facility. I do not have the exact answer for what occurred in July to cause the cost to be higher in that month than other months. I would speculate that it has to do with the amount of liquefaction going on in that month, but when I look at the chart, I see that other months had as much. So I'm not sure that's the complete answer. What I can tell you is these direct costs that are capitalized as part of our audit, they are subject to samples. So there is verification of these direct costs as part of our audit. So even though the amount is higher in that month, they have been subjected to review.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, Mr. Seaman Wynn, can you talk a little bit more about the segmentation and what's going on there? Have you done any specific detailed analysis of the reserve capacity or anything along those lines?
Yes, Commissioner. Regarding segmentation, I believe Ms. Jackson provided an ample explanation as to the company's reasoning for the changes that they have made in looking at that. ORS has discussed that matter with the company as agreement that the process that they are using and the changes they are made are appropriate. Regarding reserve margin, I would first state that the company has met the needs of all of the needs of its firm customers and is posed to do so going forward as well. We do note that they do have a reserve margin above the entire needs of the firm customers of a little bit over 5%. We continue to look at that reserve margin and have the discussions with the company to ensure that they are well placed to continue to be able to meet the needs of firm customers going forward.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I had.
Any more questions from commissioners for this panel?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Seaman, when maybe you can educate me, or I could have Googled it or something. Can you explain about the zinc ribbon thing? I just didn't really understand what that is or what that does.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, sir?
In your testimony, you mentioned about one of the costs being the installation of zinc ribbon to control AC mitigation.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you direct me to that page?
I can. It's page 3 of 12.
Yes, sir. I apologize. I'm not in a position to really discuss the specifics of the zinc ribbon. Although I do have it in there, it is one of the measures that the company has taken in its construction that has been reported to the commission. But I'm afraid I can't speak to it.
Okay. So, I mean, you, of course, analyze the cost, but not necessarily an engineer, neither am I.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions for this panel? Commissioner Williams?
My question is not for this panel. It's a question as to whether Ms. Elliott might be available to be recalled, since she may have the answer to our curiosity about July of 2021.
Well, we did excuse her, or I excused her. Attorney Gissendanner, is Ms. Elliott, I don't think she's available anymore.
Mr. Chairman, we can go find her. I mean, I'm sure she's following along, even though she's not logged in. I'm sure she's following along with the action here. I don't know if she'll have the answers to the question. We can certainly go ask.
All right.
Back in.
Thank you for your flexibility. Let me ask Attorney Hare if she's finished with her presentation.
I am, yes. We'd ask that our two witnesses be excused, and that would conclude the presentation of ORS's case.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Seaman Wynn, Mr. Sullivan, you may step down, and you all are excused. All right, Attorney Gissendanner, thank you for your flexibility. If possible, would you call Ms. Elliott to the stand again?
Yes. Dominion Energy calls Rachel Elliott back to the stand. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Burgess is on his way to go track down Ms. Elliott.
Okay. Let's stand by.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we have Ms. Elliott available. We're gonna let her, come on Mr. Burgess's screen, since, her computer had already shut down and we, didn't want to go through any more technical delay. But she is now available. The company has called Mrs. Elliott, back to the stand.
All right, Ms. Elliott, if you would pause to be sworn in by the court reporter.
Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Should I?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Miss Elliott, thank you for coming back. I appreciate your taking that extra time and for the Dominion Company going and finding you and bringing you back in. You may have heard that a couple of us asked some questions, and it was suggested that if anybody would know, it would be you. So the pressure's on. So in Mr. Sullivan's exhibits, it's DFS3. The overview is of the LNG inventory activity over the 12 months. And under direct cost, the numbers are anywhere from a low of $337 in the late winter to a high of $382,000 in July of 2021. So the question was just what happened in July of 2021 that created such high direct cost? Do you know?
Yes, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner. And I can't take full credit for it. I had to reach out to our accounting department that actually tracks those costs, but they don't what's included in that direct cost is trucking costs. There's some other costs too, but the driver in July was the trucking costs to truck the gas between the two LNG facilities because they don't truck every month. And so that represents the lion's share of that was about $360,000 associated with the trucking between the two facilities.
And so was that just a timing thing that more trucking happened during July? Or
That's right, because they don't truck every single month, and so that just represents the invoice that they would have gotten in July for the trucking that took place.
And would that be for the transfer from the Bushy Park to Sally plants?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your indulging me in getting answers. Appreciate it.
No problem.
No further questions from me.
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Belzer.
Ms. Robinson, do you have Exhibit DFS3 in front of you?
I do not, but I can pull it up.
Well, my question is, and maybe I'm not reading this schedule right, but when you say it's trucking costs, there is a column that says truck to Sally, and it's all zeros. So I'm not sure maybe I need to ask that to Mr. Sullivan, but just because there's all zeros in that column, am I correct that does not mean that there were actual trucks being sent to Sally with gas?
Commissioner, I'm not exactly sure what that column represents.
And that's fine because it's not your exhibit, but you're telling us that gas was being trucked from Bushy Park to Sally during the review period.
Yeah, I can tell you that July calls represents the July invoice for the trucking. I'm not sure exactly what time period that would have been, but that would have been the month that they got the invoice and booked those calls.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Any more questions for this witness? Ms. Elliott, thank you for making yourself available to the commission for additional questions. If there are no further questions.
Mr. Chairman, not for Ms. Robinson, but just so that we have a clear record and that I haven't misinterpreted something, would ORS be willing and Mr. Sullivan be willing to come back up?
Yes, that would be fine, Commissioner Belzer.
All right. Are there any more questions for Ms. Robinson? Ms. Robinson, hopefully you are, you may step down and you are excused.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. All right, Mr. Sullivan, if you would pause to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right, questions for Mr. Sullivan? Commissioner Williams? Questions for Mr. Sullivan? Oh, Vice Chair Belzer.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, I spoke too soon earlier, and I apologize for calling you back, but I may be misreading your exhibit, and I don't want there to be any confusion in the record. So can you explain that column trucked into Sally in your exhibit DFS3?
Yes, no problem. And sorry, that section of that exhibit should no longer be on there. I think it was several years ago, they used to track that Bushy Park and Sally separately. So you had separate records for Bushy Park and Sally. What the company did, and I think it was several years ago, at least before this review period, they combined the LNG facilities together into one record keeping. So therefore, they don't track that trucked into Sally. Those costs are now included. Those trucking costs are now included in the direct cost capitalized section. And therefore, they're not reflected in the trucked into Sally section.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sorry about that. We'll make sure to remove that off that exhibit in the future so it's not so confusing, because I knew exactly when Ms. Elliott said that was trucking to Sally, and I looked at the exhibit and I saw there was 0. I knew that was going to be confusing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more questions for Mr. Elliott? I'm sorry. Mr. Sullivan? Hearing none, Mr. Sullivan, you may step down and you are excused.
Thank you.
Anything else from the parties? All right. Did I hear someone attempt to speak?
So Mr. Gissner, I was just going to say we have nothing further.
All righty. I'd like to thank everyone for their flexibility. General Counsel Wessinger Hill, my understanding is that proposed orders are due December 1st, 2021.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Parties, is there an issue with producing proposed orders on that date?
No, sir.
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay, if there's nothing else for us to consider today, we are adjourned.